It's good to see everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Obviously, we didn't play great this past weekend, and didn't do a lot to help ourselves as far as finding a way to win a couple ball games. Obviously, this weekend you won't have any room to hide. You got Illinois coming to town, which is a really good team and really well coached. So looking forward to having a good week of practice and getting ready for Illinois.
Charles, start us off.
All right, Coach, this season your hitters are only getting 8 free passes by walk or hit by pitch for every 10 that your opponents get. Mm-hmm. In the prior 2 seasons, that was about 14 to 15 to every 10. I know you've spoken in the past about how valuable walks are. Can you speak to that now with regard to both your hitters and pitchers?
Sure. No, it is. It's an incredibly valuable part of the game. The reality is that you get 27 outs on both sides of the ball, and so any opportunity that you have to either limit those things on the defensive side or on the offensive side to expand those, and as well as those go with hit by pitches. Anytime you have an opportunity to expand those, you do give yourself a real advantage in the course of the ball game. And for us on both sides of it, the ability to control a fastball and the ability to hit a fastball are the two determining factors in really the kind of that free, they call it the freebie war, the free base, or the strikeout to walk ratio on both sides of it. Is you've got to be able to come into the ball game and throw a fastball for a strike. Which you look at Sunday with Gabe Bierman, who was terrific, absolutely terrific. His adjustment from the last 2 weeks was sensational, where he really commanded a fastball, dominated with a fastball, and was able to really put people on their heels. And so you've got to be able to come in and locate and command a fastball and make somebody hit it. And then from the offensive side, you have to be able to hit a fastball. You can't foul it back. You can't swing and miss. You can't swing through them. You can't waste those pitches. And so the ability for you to be either, in essence, on or out on fastball counts. And if someone is in the strike zone, certainly, and if someone can't locate it, then obviously you would take your free base from there. But yeah, you're right. That battle is something that is going to indicate the winner and loser the majority of the time.
John, and then Griffin.
Obviously, you guys have lost like a single game in a series. You never lost 4 in a row up to this point. I mean, just emotionally, how do you feel like your team handled it within the series? And then how do you feel like they've handled it since, coming out of that?
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head there, to be honest with you. You look back over the last 2 or 3 years, we lost a series at Tennessee 2 years ago where we kind of got drilled. But other than that, the program or the kids haven't really experienced losing. And I think emotionally, you lost that Sunday game at Michigan State, played fine. You lose a Friday game at Ohio State, played fine. We didn't play great, didn't play bad, played fine. And it's a close ball game. You have a chance late. And, the Saturday game, where the Lonsway kid actually recruited him at Wright State. It's a great kid. He threw great. And we emotionally lost control. And ultimately that's my responsibility as the coach to prepare them better than that, to not lose kind of their emotional control. It does happen in the course of the season. You'd prefer to not have 4 games in like 48 hours when you're in the middle of that moment, which we did ultimately, but you're exactly right. I watched us be a really fundamentally sound team for weeks. Now, I wasn't there for 3 weeks, but I watched us be a really fundamentally sound team in Minnesota. I watched us play terrific defense. I've watched us be really articulate with the game plan. And I've watched us be the opposite of that this past weekend. And you don't lose that. Like physically, you don't lose the ability to pick up a ground ball. Physically, you don't lose the ability to catch a pop fly. The emotion plays, the moment plays, and it plays up. And then you have a tough time being able to control yourself and slow down. And when there's not a practice in between to kind of recalibrate, the next one's coming, and you're trying to adjust as fast as you can. For us yesterday, I thought was the best practice that we've had all year. I know that's super cliche, and every coach says that after they get their butt kicked. Like, I know how it sounds. But it really was. It was kind of a reckoning. And I thought we practiced poorly the previous week. I told him going into the Ohio State series, I thought we were going to get our butt kicked because we didn't want to practice, and we're really pushing. And I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying, like, those are conversations that happen between a coach and a team. It's like, we have to be prepared for this. And again, I didn't do a good enough job. Like, I didn't get them to understand that. And so yesterday was a really good practice. And that's what failure, I don't want to lose. I hate losing. Obviously everyone does, but failure does. It exposes those things. It exposes flaws, and they were on full exposure. But Ohio State did a good job. But Indiana was an active participant in kicking Indiana's butt. Like, we were right there in the driver's seat, kicking our own butt too. So those things have to be addressed, and they were. I thought yesterday was an awesome day. We did a coach pitch scrimmage. Justin threw and Denton threw. They did a great job. They have way better stuff than I do. And then we played 6 or 7 full innings and played really well, played really loose and free. And one of the guys said, I got fired up yesterday, kind of busted their chops before practice. And one of the guys said, why don't you just do that every day? I was like, well, I don't want to do that every day. And you wouldn't want me to do that every day. But no, it was a really good practice. And I'm sure today will be too.
Griffin and then Tom.
Yeah, Coach, I know you talked earlier in the season about at times that your team was hitting emotional, and over the weekend, I think you guys were 3 for 30 with runners in scoring position. Was that kind of a result of the hitting struggles, especially when you had runners on base?
Yeah, I would say 3 for 30 is less than optimal. And it was like, you would think, even by just by purely statistical, that's a complete outlier, where you have a team that's going in the weekend hitting between 270 and 280, 285, wherever it's at, going into the weekend, and then to go 3 for 30 is certainly almost impossible at that point. And so you do, like, you begin to look at why those things happen, why they didn't happen a week ago against a very similar pitching staff, and why they happen this weekend in similar situations. And a lot of it goes back to, like you said, like, controlling your emotions, being able to apply and grow in the moment. So if you look at how a game should operate, you should get better offensively as the game goes, because you obviously have more information to draw from. You've seen what he's done. You've seen what he doesn't have, what he does have, what he's exposed himself to. You look at the course of a weekend, most pitching coaches are going to call games similarly. So over the course of a weekend, you should improve yourself, because realistically, the Ohio State threw the same pitching plan to almost the entire offense the majority of the weekend. And when you're in a place where it's hard for you to rationally kind of slow down and comprehend it, it seems like it's much more difficult than it really is, but it's not. And so, yes, those things, when they show themselves and they're exposed, it's much easier to go back and to be able to address and to improve on. And that was what I took from this past weekend, because you have to. You don't have an option. You don't have a choice. There's nothing besides learning and growing and improving through those moments. So yeah, we have to be better in those situations. But there's no physical. I was kind of joking, like, did your DNA change suddenly when there was no one on, or when there was a runner on third? Did the atmospheric pressure suddenly change in like 1 minute? It's like, no, nothing changed. Our perception of the moment changed. So if it's a self-induced perception, then it's a self-induced adjustment as well. But I'll tell you what, I've played baseball. It's hard. It's not easy. It's a really hard thing to do. It's much easier now that I'm 35, sitting on the sidelines and talking about the theory of having to go in and do it, than actually going in and doing it. So I believe in these guys. I've been with them every day. I've coached them every day. They're a really talented group offensively. I know them now, but talking about the offense, like, they're talented offensively. They work really hard. They're prepared. And so sometimes it doesn't go in your way, and it kind of speeds up on you. But I believe in them. I'm behind them, and I'm 100% confident that they'll be able to make an adjustment and do those things.
Tom and then Ari.
Jeff, when you're scuffling a little bit like this, how much does it help, A, to kind of have all hands back on deck again, and B, just being home? And, you've had two rough weekends in a row, out and about, dealing with not only game issues, but weather issues and stuff. How much better does it feel just to kind of maybe hit the restart button this weekend?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's been great to have the coaching staff back together, kind of as you mentioned there, with everybody back and back home, allowing you to practice and for like us yesterday to be able to, in essence, just like play, 75 degrees and sunny, to play in essence what would be a midweek game. We just played a midweek game yesterday. You could just feel like just to get it out and go play and kind of to reset, I think is a huge piece of it. To be able to sit down and reevaluate and reassess at home, and then go like practice it immediately thereafter, I think makes a huge impact. And to kind of clear yourself and to, I told the guys, I said in our little powwow yesterday, I said the worst possible thing just happened. I mean, outside of like someone in your family being sick, right? As far as baseball goes, the worst possible thing just happened. We went 0-4 on a weekend, the worst possible thing. And the sun came up today and we still have 26 games left and the season's still happening. They didn't give away a championship yesterday and they didn't throw it away yesterday. That didn't cancel the season for us or anyone else. The worst possible thing happened and we're all still here and we're all fine and we're all healthy. And so from there, I think you could kind of see like, yeah, you're right. What am my fear? What do I fear so much if the worst possible thing happened? And I said, did anybody's girlfriend call and break up with you on the way home Sunday? My wife I'm sure she thought about doing that with me on Sunday, but no one did. Did anybody's mom and dad, call and said, I don't want you to, wear your the jersey with my name on the back of it. No, it didn't happen. And so I think when that fear is eliminated a little bit, I think it helps a ton. But Tom, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Being home, being able to practice, being able to hold back together as a staff, again, and I think it makes a huge impact for the guys.
Ari, and then we'll go back to Carl.
Coach, you've had a bit of an interesting situation with hitting pitchers this year. On the one hand, you dominated a guy like Mason Erla, who's been really struggling against MSU, but then you've turned around and had a little bit of issues. I know Lansway's a good pitcher, but he came in with close to a 6 ERA. And I mean, this year it seemed like even Michigan State, you had a problem with the Sunday guy. Is there some reason that you're hitting certain pitchers that have been really dominant against other people, but then turned around and had issues with pitchers that have been struggling big against people, against other teams?
Sure. Yeah, but that's kind of the heart of the whole issue here. So you look at, we talked about last week with the guy from Sunday from Michigan State. That was a tough matchup, and the weather certainly had an impact on that thing. Seth Lansway is terrifically talented, and he's a great kid from a great family. I know his family really well. Awesome kid. He's really good. Just because he hasn't had maybe a couple of starts up to his standards, he's outstanding, and he pitched like it. The thing that I get frustrated at times with is when you see a similar profiled pitcher, right? You have some outliers. A lefty that's 90 to 94 with 2+ off-speed pitches is an outlier profile, even if he has struggled at times. But when you start seeing similar profile pitchers, and the early kid from Michigan State is a terrific player. He's really talented. I watched the scoreboard say 97 like 7 times that day. He's terrific. But in general, when you're watching similar profiled pitchers, us go from being very articulate and very good to the same profile pitcher look confused and dumbfounded, then I take that very personally. I take it very personally that I haven't been able to communicate the way that I need to be able to communicate to help those guys to on a daily basis be able to go out and have an opportunity for success. Like, I have to be able to self-evaluate. I have to be able to hold myself accountable as the leader of that group. And so I take responsibility in those situations. I know that they're capable. I know that they've shown the ability to do it. And I'm confident that we will be able to do it. But I think it's really easy for a coach to sit here and say like, well, the players didn't do this and the players didn't do that. Well, ultimately, like, if I'm in charge of that group, I have to be in charge of that group, and I am. And so we have to communicate in a way that allows them to have success. And so I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat with them, and we'll continue to get better. But no, you're right. Like you struck to a true chord where we have the ability, we've shown the ability to handle like the similar stuff guys. And now we have to be more consistent with our ability to do that.
Carl and then John.
Coach, any concerns with the fact that Wiki has not seen game action over the past 2 weekends?
Yeah, I honestly, it was so cold at Michigan State on that Sunday game that I made a kind of an executive decision to not throw him. He just throws 100. So when I just get concerned when it's that cold and guys that throw that hard, I get concerned about them a little bit. And then this past weekend, just didn't feel like we had maybe the Sunday game in that situation, you know, with the tie game or the lead there in the eighth, but just didn't feel like it was the right moment for him at that time. So he is a great closer. We're very fortunate to have him. We need to make sure that we utilize him to the best of our abilities to help us win, but at the same time, making sure that we're keeping him, putting him in good positions. You have to, sorry. And we've talked about it as a staff, like just when you have a guy that throws that hard and that is that fast twitch and explosive, just making sure that we're not putting him in positions that are a bit dangerous for him from a weather standpoint.
John, and then Tom.
Just wondering philosophically, when you have a weekend, you know, that goes that poorly, do you consider lineup changes to kind of like infuse something different in, or do you feel like those same guys need to ride this out and you kind of want to keep it consistent to give them a chance to kind of get back on their feet?
I would say preferably, you keep the same guys if you can. But at the same time, you have to, like you said, you have to be able to reevaluate. Not having the midweek game is difficult because that's where you would give a guy an opportunity. So it's like a young guy. And we do have some really talented young players. So we have some really talented young guys that you would like to get a look at. And that was kind of part of the idea of the scrimmage yesterday, to see some guys and put some guys in some positions to potentially earn a larger role. But you're right. It's kind of I like consistency. I like to eat the same breakfast every day. I wear the same shirt, you know, I wear the same hat. Like everyone likes consistency. And until you prove that there's something else, that there's a viable option there. So all options are on the table. I am not in any way, shape, or form a reactionary person. That's just, I always disliked that as a player, where it felt like the wind blew a certain direction. So it was like the way the wind blows, that's how we're going to operate. And it's like, we've been practicing for 10 months, you know? So, but I will say this, especially with young guys, I asked our guys last week going into this, as we kind of were trying to prepare ourselves for what's coming, and knowing that we were going to go into there's going to be more fans there. There's going to be like a more hostile environment, just trying to, because they just don't know. I'm like, how many of you guys before this year have ever actually watched a college baseball game? We have like 28 freshmen, right? Between COVID and regular freshmen. And it's like, none of the freshmen or COVID freshmen really raised their hands. Like, I've never really even seen a college baseball game. It's like, okay. So take my word for it, what's getting ready to come. But those guys, once they start to see games and they see what leads to success, they get so much better so fast. So you do have to always be able to go back and look at those guys, because if they're talented, which they are, because we recruited them, if they're talented, it's just a matter of time is when do they kind of figure it out. And this is the window when you do see young guys. I mean, you think back to the Grant Richardson scenario a couple years ago. Now we had a preseason that year. So you play, 20, 22 games, 25 games preseason. And it's like, hey, Grant just got way better in a month. And you put him in and he goes on to be a freshman All-American. And so those things happen a ton. I'm not saying that it necessarily will, but it certainly is a conversation piece that now that you've played enough games, you see some young guys and it's like, I think this guy's got a chance to help us. And then injuries always create opportunities. Injuries always create opportunities. And every team is going to have nicks and bruises, and we're not any different, and we won't be any different. Guys are going to roll their ankle. They're going to step on the base wrong. They're going to get, hit in the elbow. And so there's going to be opportunities, and guys need to go out and grab them.
Tom, and then last one for Griffin.
Jeff, after this weekend, basically we'll be halfway through. And it's with this Big Ten only schedule, two questions. One, how closely do you start to look at standings and such now? And two, how do you think the NCAA selection committee will sort of evaluate the Big Ten this year with them really only playing each other?
Yeah, it's a great question. I know I always kind of joke with my wife about this. because she'll say, "Hey, are you watching?" Because I have the little app on my phone, and she's like, "Are you watching the other games?" And I said, "No, I always feel it always feels weird watching. Like I'll watch games sometimes to kind of do scouting reports, but I always feel weird watching like the standings and this team needs to do this. I just feel like it's kind of bad. It's like bad karma to think too much about it. And the reality is like we have plenty to worry about right now in our own program to get ourselves ready to play. So I don't do it too much. You may take a look at it here and there as you're looking at pitching matchups or situations. Maybe I guess I could see that. And if you want to get the kids fired up, it's an easy way. It's when we're in first place in the conference, obviously not right now, but when we were in first place in the conference, it's like, hey, listen, you're first place in the league. You're going in, like you're going to get somebody's best shot, and just in general, not this past weekend, but in general. And those, you can use those things as a motivator at times if you need to. And you got to have a whole bag of tricks, as you guys know, with young people. And as a coach, you got to have a whole bag of tricks to go to. So like you could do that some. As far as the selection goes for the conference, it's a great question. I haven't gotten a really straight answer from the people. Carl's probably the much more of the expert on this than I would be. And he can chime in, but I don't know. I think you're probably looking at somewhere in the 3, maybe 4 teams. Kind of depends on if the top of the league really pulls away, which doesn't seem to be until we did this past weekend. Doesn't seem to be necessarily beyond the case. I think they're going to have to pass the eye test. It's a really hard thing. The RPI is as a rather non-existent measuring stick for our conference this year. And so you're going to have to pass the eye test. There's a lot of really smart baseball people in the room that are going to be able to take a look and make their decision based on the metrics to the best of their ability. But also at the same time, you're just going to have to kind of finish in the top 3, maybe 4, and do the best that you can to present yourself as a team that's talented enough and capable of and deserving of being in the NCAA tournament. And at the same time, there are dozens and dozens of teams across the country that are deserving, and many of them don't make the NCAA tournament. I can remember my first year as the head coach at Wright State. At one point, we were ranked top 25 in the country. We went down and beat some ACC teams and SEC teams and played really well, and we finished runner-up in the league. To UIC, they had a transformationally good team. They were so good that year. We got beat in the championship, and we obviously did not make the NCAA tournament. I remember people texting me like, I can't believe you guys were ranked top 25 in the country and you won 37 or 38 games, whatever it was, and you finished all this stuff. How'd you not make it? It's like, man, there are so many couldn't even cross my mind. If we didn't win the conference championship, we weren't making the tournament. Like there's so many good teams that you just have to win. You have to win the whole thing at that level or in that league. And so I know it's kind of off topic, but I don't know. It's going to be a dogfight. All I know is that every day that I got to show up to coach. We have to show up to coach these teams to try to finish in those top couple and not leave anything up for debate.
All right, wrap us up, Griffin.
Yeah, Coach, just looking forward to this weekend. I was kind of wondering what your impressions are of Illinois, Coach Hartleb, and what challenges the Illini bring to Bloomington.
I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't dove super deep into the scouting report yet, but I know Coach Hartleb played him when we were at Wright State in the regional, and then played them up at their place 2 years ago, and they beat us pretty soundly. They won the series 2-1. But I do know this: like they're going to be really well coached. They're very disciplined. They play good defense. They're going to be really articulate. They're a super organized, diligent group. They over the last 5 or 7 years when I've played them, there's always the same philosophy of really quality baseball players. That really, if we make mistakes, if we give free bases, if we don't take our walks, if we chase pitches to your point earlier, the hitting with scoring position, if you do that to those guys, they won't give you the game. They're not going to walk 3 guys and then kick 2 double play balls. They're not going to do that. They're going to take care of the ball. They're going to throw strikes. They're going to be super competitive in the things that matter. And so you're going to have to beat them at baseball. Like the things, again, like I said, like Indiana did a pretty good job of kicking Indiana's butt. Ohio State obviously did too, but if you do that this weekend, they'll do the same thing. If you do that, if we do what we did against anybody, they're going to do that to you. So they're, like I said, very fundamental, very sound. Coach Hartleb is a terrific coach, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the conference, truly. And they'll be prepared. And so we have to go out and be really good and be professionals in the way that we approach the ball game.